And welcome back to 16 News Now Saturday morning. Now, it's normal for pets to scratch their ears on occasion, but excessive scratching at them could be a sign for something more serious. And now our pet vet, Dr. David Visser, is here this morning to help us figure out just what might be going on and what to do about it. So good morning, Dr. David. How you doing?
Good morning. You know, ears are a unique thing. It is probably one of the most common kinds of things that that affects pets. This particular time of year seems to be more of an affected time period because the humidity and the moisture in the air. But pets are out and about as well, and there's many different things that can cause ear issues, but it's certainly one of the most common things that brings pets into the veterinarian.
Right, and you talked a little bit about these ear issues. Just how common are ear problems for pets?
You know, the veterinary pet insurance company did surveys every year to figure out what was the most common claim, and we found that the #1 reason for pets to go to the veterinarian is actually ear or skin issues. It may be number 7 or 8 for cats, but nevertheless, both pets are affected by this particular common syndrome.
And is scratching of the ears a problem then? Like if you're seeing them kind of scratching and going at it?
You know, it's kind of tricky because sometimes they're just scratching an itch or it's ticklish right at that moment and not necessarily a more significant thing. But I think the real issue is when it becomes persistent. So when itchiness becomes a more persistent kind of issue, the head shaking occurs. That's sometimes an issue with the only way in which they can scratch their head is by shaking their head. Sometimes people will mistake reasons for why pets might run their face along the furniture or the floor as well, but that is also in the form of scratching an itch. And in some instances, it's so ticklish that even in between head shaking, they got this head tilt or twitching of their head being held to the side, almost to hang the ear lower. But it's when this itchiness becomes more significant that things are more of an issue.
Gotcha. And I guess I've noticed with some dogs too, there can actually be an odor kind of coming from the ear. Is that normal, or does that kind of automatically mean that there's a problem with your pet?
This is another one of those fine lines because there is going to be a natural mild odor to the ears, but it should never be strong. And so when organisms multiply in the ears or there's a more significant issue, we're going to have a much more strong odor. So that's one of the things that people should be noticing the difference between. And it's not necessarily homework for everybody to go home and smell their pet's ears, but to notice the difference I think is an important thing. So if you know what your dog's ears normally smell like, then you'll notice if something becomes more significant. But the appearance of the ear canals can be something else for people to be aware of. Ulcerations. Instead of being a smooth pink color, there might be red areas or even open areas. And then discharge is probably the most common thing. Many different colors of discharge, but stuff that's in there that shouldn't be in there is also a clue. And if that infection or whatever's going on in there is more significant, or the scratching at the ear is significant, then that can result in bleeding. But the most significant thing that can happen with ear infections, or I guess I should say another depth of complication, is when they shake their head so hard that they break a blood vessel in the ear flap.
Wow.
You know, the ear is kind of like the ear flap is kind of like a skin sandwich over cartilage. But if a blood vessel breaks, then it kind of fills up with blood, almost becoming like a blood blister. Now, it's not the same thing, but a blood-filled pocket only makes it much more sensitive, much more head shaking, and that's called an ear hematoma. A hematoma is not going to go away without some special care, so that's an important clue to be aware of too.
Gotcha. And so now we know about some of the problems that we should be looking out for, kind of like these hematomas. So what are some of the causes of these problems then?
Yeah, there's the itchiness is going to be the most common thing. It's not really so much that pets can be infected from one dog to another, but rather that there's an opportunistic situation in the ear canal making that one more prone. So bacteria infections, yeast infections, and these things don't often start on their own, but sometimes allergies, which is an irritation or intolerance in the immune system that causes the skin to react, predisposes to inflammation in the ear, and then bacteria and yeast that live there in small numbers multiply and cause these infections. And as I was saying, it's not common to have a primary infective agent, but ear mites would be on that category. I don't know if we got a video to show, but
we should actually have, yep, right here popping up. You can see them right there.
This will make people lose their breakfast right now, but it's a creepy thing to look at that. But basically, ear mites are insects that can live in the ear canals, and they burrow in the ear canal. It can be very, very itchy, as you can imagine. Now, this is not the most common thing in dogs and cats' ear issues in general, but it does commonly affect young kittens, probably more than dogs. And again, we want your veterinarian to be able to decide which of these issues is going on by looking into into things rather than guessing. You can see all the differences.
Gotcha. Yeah. So those creepy crawlies, you got to be watching out for some of those.
Yeah.
So I guess, what about treating ear infections? Then you talked a little bit about kind of working it out with your vet. What are we going to be doing to treat them?
Yeah, so there's going to be initial examination is going to be important to figure this out as to what the cause is, and then treatment is going to depend on what that cause is. As you can imagine, treating ear mites is going to be different from treating allergies or infections. And so mite medication, of course, is used if mites are there. Topical ear drops might be used if this is only a topical issue within the ear canals. Cleaning that discharge out removes the buffet, so to speak, so that these organisms don't hang around. And then sometimes the infection, if it's a bacterial infection, can be so significant we might use internal antibiotics or medications to manage the underlying issue, which is the allergies. But it's so important to realize that depending on what the cause is really what determines the treatment. It's very easy for us to receive a phone call saying, hey, my dog's got that ear infection again, my cat's got that one thing again, can I get the same medicine? We need to make sure the eardrum is okay. We need to make sure that the cause of this issue is identified so we can get a specific treatment. Sorry if there's a reason why we need to do that, but as you can imagine, your pet needs to have the right diagnosis for the right treatment.
Right, always want to be specific and want to be safe as well, too. Appreciate you again, Dr. Visser, for joining us this morning. If you want to contact the pet vet, Dr. David Visser, you can reach out to him at the Center for Animal Health by calling 888-PETS.